Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Book to Film. This week is Night of the Hunter, 1953 first novel by Davis Grubb, and the 1955 film with Robert Mitchum, Shelley Winters, and Lillian Gish as the main stars, and it was directed by Charles Laughton. Now, as I say, the book is Davis Grubb's first novel, 1953. It's basically like you could say it's Southern Gothic. An oddity about it, or I found it a bit of an oddity, I think, for the time, is that there's no quotation marks for the dialogue. That doesn't really hamper you for reading it. Um, it's occasionally you're not sure. I have read that they said, oh, it's for clarity, like it was done, and so so it's uninterrupt the flow of the story. But sometimes the quotation, I don't really buy that, because quotation marks don't really interrupt the flow of the reading. And it actually allows you to quickly know where the dialogue is without even thinking. You see it. But anyway, it doesn't really impact on it, really, to be honest, to me. But it's a rather simple story in some ways. Like the plot is, it's about good and evil, and light and dark. And it's about a preacher. He's just called a preacher, mostly. Uh, and he goes around. And this is in West Virginia. It's the height of the Depression, mid 30s, 34, 35. And he goes around marrying widows that have a little bit of money, and then kills them, then moves on. But the story starts out with about a family, a Harper family. Ben Harper is in prison, and his wife is going to see him. He has killed two men in a bank robbery, and he stole $10,000, and they don't know where the money is. And he is told that if he does tell where the money is, he can probably have his sentence commuted to life rather than death. But he refuses to, and he refuses to tell his wife, and everybody's talking. Even the guards want to know, um, where the money is. But he refuses to tell. He gets executed without telling anything. But before that, he's in prison with this preacher who was picked up in a stolen vehicle. It is, but he says, oh, it's just, it's the Lord's work, that they didn't realize that he's the one that killed all these other women, or especially the most recent one. So, and he finds out about the money, and he tries to get the answer from Ben Harper, who stole the money, where it is. He refuses to tell. But he's only the preacher's only in there for a little while. So after Ben Harper has died, he gets out, and he winds up at the Harper family with Willa, the widow, and two children, John and Pearl. And he's on the hunt for the money. So he ingratiates himself with the family and the town. He does this, very slick religious thing. He's got hate tattooed on his knuckles, and then love on the right hand. And he talks about this, struggle between hate and love, and they all fall for it. John, though, is uncertain. And then finally he decides he stays, and he marries Willa, the widow. So, and he confronts John where the money is, because he's convinced that the children know, or at least John knows where the money is. But John is not saying, Pearl is not saying. We eventually find out through a dream that John remembers his father coming back, being shot in the shoulder, bleeding, and with the money, and stuffing the money actually in Pearl's little doll, Miss Jenny. And he swears them to secrecy. Don't tell anybody. Don't even tell your mother, Willa. Everything. So eventually, the preacher pushes the children a little too far, and the mother, she's already taken in by him, and she's um, feeling bad about all her sexual urges and everything like that. So she's sort of going to the Lord, and is being very hoodwinked by this fake preacher. But she does hear the preacher talk badly about her daughter, or saying, trying to force the children to tell about the money. So the time is up for her in the story, because the preacher kills her, dumps her body in the river. And then the whole town, everybody is sorry for him because he says she ran away. But then the kids run away, the children run away downriver, and they wind up with an older woman who is Rachel Cooper, who takes in orphans. And but he's in hot pursuit. He's in hot pursuit of this. But he says that he's just going to go away to his sister's place downriver, and where the children can have a respite and good food and everything. But he's after them, and then because he's already he found out just before they ran away that the money's in the doll, so he's hot on their trail to get the money. So he does track them down, and he confronts and tries to get the children back from Rachel Cooper, but she's smart. She sees him for what he is, and she believes John as well. So he tries to sneak in to grab it. Well, first of all, but she sends him off with a shotgun, and then at nighttime he comes back and she has to shoot him, and then the police come. The state troopers come, grab him and they know who he is, that he's killed these other women, so he goes on trial for this. But at the same time, John is sort of traumatized by this, because he saw his father being taken by the police, and he sees the preacher taken the same way, and it's the same way, and he sort of goes into almost a very dreamlike state, and he doesn't know what's going on, and anything like that, because he thinks he's reliving the aspect of his father being taken, and he finds it so heavy on his mind of keeping the secret. So he starts banging the doll onto the preacher's body, saying, "Dad, I don't want the trouble anymore, and it's too much for me." So they go through the trial and everything, and it ends basically with good triumphs over evil. So that's the book, and it doesn't sound like much. Like it's just normally it's not something that I would really recommend or anything, but the way it's written is very interesting. It's got a very good atmosphere. The way he intertwines the fact that it's inside, like it's almost fully from a child's point of view, from John's point of view, but with sort of a different lens, and sometimes it's within somebody else's mind as well, and within their own consciousness, so it fades back and forth. But especially at the end, it's like a dreamlike state in from John's eyes fully. And it was a big hit. And what happened was, I got to get the name straight here, so sorry, I have to look. I'll just back up a bit. When it came to making the film, the producer, where's his name? I'll have to go to the back. Oh, I forgot his name. I don't know why they don't say it here. Well, the producer, he saw Charles Lawton on the Ed Sullivan show reading a section of the Bible, and he was very, very impressed by it. So he runs down to the studio because it was live to meet Lawton, and then he sorry, I just forgotten who the producer was. Paul Gregory. Sorry, Paul Gregory. So he meets Lawton and he signs him up. He becomes sort of his agent to a certain extent, and sends him on these tours, reading the Bible, and also he gets him in. He starts directing. Charles Lawton starts directing theatrical plays, and then a friend of his gives him the galleys of the Night of the Hunter, and Charles Lawton loved it, and Paul Gregory says, you direct it, you need to direct this. So that's where it starts, and they get James Agee to write a script. There was a lot of myth around how big the script was, and that it could have been 400 pages, but in actual fact it was just under 300, and it was just the working script. And then Charles Lawton worked with James Agee and the author because he got to know Davis Grubb quite well. Lawton did, and corresponded with them, and Grubb sent him a whole bunch of drawings of how he sees this being done, and so it was slowly adapted to a shooting script. And the Robert Mitchum was picked as the preacher, Harry Powell. Shelley Winters was Willa Harper. And Lillian Gish from the silent era, D.W. Griffith's big star, plays Ms. Cooper. And Uncle Bertie, another character, James Gleason, a fabulous actor. And then there's the other supporting actors. Peter Graves plays Ben Harper, the father, at the beginning. And the children were cast. John Harper was Billy Chapin, I guess, yeah. And Pearl Harper was Sally Jane Bruce. But they adapted the book, and here's an example where I've talked about it a few times, where either, like, it's the screenwriter, the director, the cinematographer, and the source material all come together to create something that is wonderful. And that, in this case, is the film Night of the Hunter. And I've mentioned this, like, there's two other ones that I've done to book the film, and that was McTeague, which Frank Norris's McTeague book, and Eric von Stroheim's Greed. And then there was Turn of the Screw by Henry James, and the film The Innocents. Jack Clayton directed it, but the author was several scripts, but the main script writer that set everything up the best was Truman Capote. So all these things, they come together and they do something excitingly special. Like there's material in the source material that they do something. Each of these stories do something that is interesting and neat. Can't be immediately transferred to film, so you have to do something to explain that feeling or the storyline in a way that is comparable to what's in the book. In the source material, but they do it in a slightly different way. For Night of the Hunter, it's very cinematically told. There's scenes that are fabulous, and they pull dialogue right out of it. And as in some of the extras that I saw, somebody said you could just rip out the pages, and you could use it as a shooting script almost. But they do a little more than that. They for the film, they enhance things. They add a few other things. Some things may be questionable. We'll get into that a little bit, but it's just, to me, it's a when it all comes together correctly, it creates something that is normally would be the source material normally would be just an okay story, but because of the way it's presented and the feeling, it's like the Southern Gothic and the parables with like he's even has like biblical passages almost in here, and it plays off those things, and it rises up. It's the language that raises the, if you want to say, mundane story into something that is much, much more. And with a film, you do things visually, and with the script that raise it from just a normal thing. Because what's the use of just turning a camera? Like, well, there is use to it, but it's like, this has German expressionist. It's got slapstick in it. It's got all sorts of stuff, like heavily on. The silent film is very prevalent in here. There's naturalism, there's realism, and heightened naturalism. That it's like, instead of turning the camera on and showing you exactly what's there, you do something different. You make it a little bit heightened, that gives you a visual feast, that tells actually as well the story. Because for the film, they decided to go by, it's basically through the eyes of John, the children. So it's a dreamlike state in many areas. Some of it's very, very simple. Um, but it's like one of the things they changed was the beginning. Rather than Willa going to see her husband in the book, it starts out with showing a dead. Well, no, actually, it starts out with Miss Cooper sort of up in the sky with some children, and she's telling them a little story and saying, and beware of sheep. A wolf in sheep's clothing, meaning the preacher. It's a bit heavy-handed in that way, that it could have been taken out, but it also fits in with what Charles Lant wanted to do. It's like a fairy tale in many ways. The film is like a fairy tale. He thinks the character of Miss Cooper is like Mother Goose. And he shows that, because even in the scenes where the children are following her, it's like Mother Goose with all the chicks following in behind, or the other geese. Um, and he relied heavily on, he watched over and over Griffith films and other silent films, and he decided on Lillian Gish, and it was an inspired decision there. She is excellent in this, and it also harkens back to the silent film techniques that he used, even in filming it, because he didn't sort of start to film and then cut, and then the film was stopped, and then they start again. He would let the whole reel play, and he would talk, to the actors, like silent film directors did, and just let it go, and then they take out what they want and edit it. That was no, it wasn't done anymore. And then also, like the montage, like they would do montages in the way Griffith did, of back and forth between the faces, not as fast or as Soviet montage, but sort of a Griffith montage, and also using the iris to zoom in on stuff, and that hadn't been used for a long time, so he brings that back. But also the beginning as well shows the death of a woman in a cellar, and then it cuts to the preacher driving down the road, and there's some fabulous lines here. He goes, "What will it be, Lord? Another widow? Has it been 6, 12? I disremember. You say the word, and I'm on my way." And then he goes, "You always send me money to go forth and preach your word. A widow with a little wad of bills hidden away in her sugar bowl. I am tired sometimes. I wonder if you really understand. Not that you mind the killins. Your book is full of killins. But there are things you do hate, Lord. Perfume, smelling things, lacy things, things with curly hair. And it's done with Robert Mitchum says this, and it's done tongue in cheek, but it's a brilliant performance because it fits in with it. It's like, the people that do these kind of things, to me they are laughable. You can see right through them, but it hoodwinks people. So there is that to it. But he also wanted to make it so that the preacher wasn't so bad, all the way. Well, he's bad, but he wanted to make him comical in some ways, and there are a lot of comical scenes. And as I say, like the cinematographer was Cortez. What's his first name? Sorry. Stanley Cortez, who did a lot of films, but he also did the Magnificent Ambersons for Orson Welles. And he had said later that there was only two directors that really understood light, and that was Orson Welles and Charles Laughton. And he brings so much stuff to this, the lighting, because he's using a new type of a fast film that really shows the black and light and the lighter colors as well, a huge contrast. And also you could light the set with less light and still have it work, but he sometimes would overlight it and other things. But it's just fabulous. And the our art direction was Hilliard Brown, who did some magnificent things. And they were very, very tight on budget. So they had a low budget and they had to do this quickly. So there weren't a lot of location shooting. So when they're going down the river, it's all done in the studio. It's a studio. It doesn't look real. It's like I say, it's a heightened sort of reality. It's not real out on the river, but it's just fabulous because it's showing from they're going downstream and the camera's sort of going with them, and everything in the foreground is massive and large. Like there's two rabbits. Well, it's actually one rabbit, but filmed twice. And they are massive, and the boat is in the background, like it's like this, and then the boat is here, sort of. It's just fabulous. It's forced perspective in many times, and they would have a like the turtle walking along, and then like it turned out to be like a 3-foot spider web made of nylon thread and with honey dripping off it to be like dew or rain. The stars were actually lights in the in a curtain, I think it was. But it doesn't look real. Like, if you went out and filmed that on the river and stuff like that, it wouldn't look like that. But that wasn't the point. The point is that it's from the children's eyes, or his eyes, so it's like almost like a dreamlike state, and that's what that is, sort of dreamlike. And then they stop at a farmhouse and a barn, and they're just cutouts on the set, and they're just black, and then you got a window with a bird cage, silhouetted, and it just looks fabulous. Like, obviously it's not real, but it just looks like, and in some ways, why make something look real when you can see that? You make something that's like, they called it too artsy. I don't think it's too artsy. There's a fine line where art, where it can be too artsy, where it's too airy fairy, and something else that's it's down the middle and sometimes goes a little to the arts and then goes, shifts a little bit, and it just makes something visually, it takes it a step above that makes it interesting and more interesting because visually it feeds in with the fairy tale aspect of it, the story too, the way it's told, the way they enhance things, and change things slightly, just tweak them a little bit, from the book. And there's another, like a force perspective. It's a fabulous scene. um, and I'm going to use this as my thumbnail for this as well. It's there's John, and Pearl's there. Well, sort of out of shot. But they're resting in this barn in the hayloft, and that's the preacher going by on his horse that he's stolen, and that's all done in the studio. And that's forced perspective because it was a small horse or a small pony, and it was John's, the actor's double, which was a midget, I believe. Um, and he's riding across there, and then there's the sound of him singing. It's actually Robert Mitchum actually singing, and that's the other thing. Music is super important throughout this, and but also too that's heightened, like, it's forced perspective, but also too the sound sounds like he's right here. He's right beside John singing, which isn't reality. That doesn't, it doesn't sound like he's in the background, and that's happens many times, but that's perfectly fine, and it works because it's like, John feels that he's there with them all the time. And the great line is don't he ever sleep, or don't he never sleep, or something like that. And then they run away again, and there's a scene where they go up to a woman, and it's from the inside the house, outside the door, so the woman is mostly silhouetted, but and asking for food, and they get some potatoes, and it's very Walker Evans, and that probably is from definitely from James Agee, because he worked with Walker Evans to do a book and photography. So he trumped around with Walker Evans while he took his photographs during the Depression with sharecroppers and so forth. And other things that were brought in because they're like at the beginning. At the beginning, there's a scene where the preacher gets arrested for this theft of the car. He's at a burlesque house, and it's kind of neat. They show the woman dancing on the thing, but it's like a keyhole. It's through a keyhole. Like, what the butler saw. It's like, peeping through a keyhole into something, sexual and everything. And he's sitting there getting angry and stuff, and he puts his hand in his hate hand in his coat pocket, and he flicks the switch peg, and it ping comes out. So it's like a phallic thing that's showing. It was meant to be in his James Agee. It was meant to be in his trouser pockets, his pants pocket, but they knew it wouldn't get past the censors, so they did it this way because basically it's showing almost that he's in many ways probably impotent. That's never really discussed, but it's probably pretty clear. He only, he's a psychopath, clear as that. He thinks he's doing God's work by killing these women, and he's just, he's nuts. As simple as that. He's evil, and Lillian Gish's character is the good. She's the love to the hate aspect. And it's a fabulous film, and it just comes back to again, the source material has a lot of stuff there, and where it gets pulled from, which is really, really neat. And how collaboratively something can be done amazingly well. Sadly, it was Charles Laughton's only film that he directed. It sort of bombed at the theater. The studio didn't really want to promote it. They didn't promote it. So it did go on many top 10 lists at the end of the year. However, it sort of it was split with reviews. Reviews, some thought it was good and some thought it was bad. They thought it was too comical in some places. Um, and it was hard to categorize either, because it was like whether it's a thriller or anything like that. It's Southern Gothic, and it's now considered like a horror. I wouldn't call it a horror. It's horrific in places, I suppose, but there's also the slapstick. There's like a Tom and Jerry aspect of Robert Mitchum running up the stairs after in the basement after the children. He gets his fingers cramped in the door, and he, hoots and howls at times that is sort of funny, maybe too much. Yeah, it's like that they might have overdid that, but it's I think it works within the framework of the film, with the fairy tale aspect of it. And he frames scenes a lot of times, especially when he's showing the Ms. Cooper bringing the John and Pearl back to her house in the river, and they got the geese, so he's showing that it's Mother Goose, but also too he frames it like Griffith did a lot of times. And there were other actresses they wanted for her part. Was it Jane Darnell? I think it is. Mother Jode, that was on Grapes of Wrath. She would have done well, but I don't think as good as Lillian Gish. And Robert Mitchum, the preacher's character, I think Lawton wanted Gary Cooper. I can't really see that. He was probably a little too old for the time. And then I think the Gregory, Paul Gregory, suggested um, um, Laurence Olivier, but yeah, I don't see it. And then finally, yeah, they got Robert Mitchum, and I think I think it's one of the best parts of that Mitchum has ever had, and I think he thought it was one of his best too, and he also thought that that Lawton was a fabulous director. Like they all said it was fabulous. Lillian Gish thought he was really good. He was a bit hesitant. He was unsure of himself a lot of times, but it was just sort of a great way on the set apparently. And the interesting thing is that after he died, his widow Elsa Lanchester told somebody that there's like canisters of outtakes and rushes from the film, and they're like finally after 20 years slowly piecing it together with the sound, which was separate and everything. There's like over 8 hours of rushes and extra material because, as I say, he kept the film running, and probably that's only part of what there was. So and on this Blu-ray, the Criterion edition, on the second one, there's 2 hours and 40 minutes of that material reassembled in the order of the film. So you can rewatch the film, but with watching the outtakes and you could hear Charles Lawton in the background cajoling the children and the actors to get their parts, or sometimes he's in there and he'll be speaking the part when they just have the close-up. He'll be speaking the other person's part, and getting, saying, no, do this, oh, that's too over much, keep your eyes this way. Yeah, he had a lot of problem with the little girl, because she kept wandering her eyes and muffing the lines. And so he was very patient, though, you could see. And it's just fabulous. I with something like this, like, with Blu-rays, why did they just put the whole 8 hours? I'd sit there and watch it eventually. I'd watch all this stuff. I would just love it. But even so, it's just fabulous to see it all. And then, like, again, the cinematography, there's German expressionists, like where Willa gets killed. It's in the bedroom. It's not really a set. All there is a background, but it looks like a church sort of steeple type thing. And you got a bit of a window, so you got a back bit, and then the bed's out in front. And it looks like a church, like she's going to be sacrificed, and then the lighting that comes in and the way she's lit on the bed, it's just the cinematography is just amazing. And yeah, Stanley Cortez, what it was fabulous. There's an interview with him at the American Society of Cinematographers. It's a French. It looks like it's a French interview because it's got French subtitles down at the bottom. But it's kind of interesting. He's a bit full of himself, but I think rightly so. He knew what he was doing. He understood light, and he said, and like he can't really explain what it is, and he says it's like you either understand it or you don't. And Lawton understood it, and Wells apparently understood it, according to him. And yeah, it's just a fabulous film, and the extras, as I say, in this is fabulous. Um, there's interviews. The commentary is very good. It's like multiple ones commentaries. They even have like interviews. They've got Paul Gregory, uh, uh, and other ones that worked on the film in the background. The two children are still alive. They didn't really act much after. I think it was the little girl's only one film, and she is retired. I think she worked in education for a while, and the boy did a few other films and a few others, but the rest have passed on. Now, and Paul Gregory was well, I think he's died now. He's dead now, but he was interviewed there, and it's just a fabulous film. And the extra, this is where Criterion, okay, like I'm a little sometimes disappointed with Criterion, because mainly because sometimes, yeah, they do have pretty good commentaries generally. The other extras are hit or miss that are on here sometimes, and the essays are usually just one little essay that's pretty weak. This one has two essays in the booklet. The first one is weak. It's like you didn't even need it. It's like something that would be in your Sunday paper, it doesn't tell much. But it's a fabulous picture that must have been a promotion picture that you just wouldn't see this today. It's Robert Mitchum with John, the character, uh, uh, Chapin, with a knife. He's holding a knife over his head, with the little girl looking on. The second one was by Michael Sargrove, which is a lot better. It's a lot better essay, and he edited uh, this year, film writing, selected journalism of James Agee, and he put in the final script that was worked together with Lawton and Agee in here. The original script came to light in 2003. There is University of Tennessee has done a series of, I assume it's done, of all James Agee's writing, and it has. There's one volume that has the original script and the final script for Night of the Hunter and African Queen. I really want that. I really want to get that, but it's really expensive. It's like 80 or £100 for like a 300-page book. And this one here was pretty good. It's by Simon Callow. It's a little BFI guide that was published in originally 2000, I guess, and then reprinted 2002 and 2008. It's pretty good. Simon Callow also did a biography of Charles Lawton, which is really good. I can't access it now. I do have it there. And the book, as I say, was 1953, but this edition, despite what it says in the booklet here, it's saying that the book is long out of print. It's not. It's still in print, or at least I was able to buy it. This is a vintage trade paperback. And I don't see 1980. Well, they 2015, because there's a forward in here, and she calls it a lost masterpiece. Which, yeah, I can agree with that. I do want to read more of his books. Davis Grubb, he's written quite a bit. Like about 10 novels, and this is vintage movie classics, so if anybody's interested in it, and this is the Library of America edition that was published and published in 2005. So yeah, it was after the script came to light in 2003. But yeah, so that's I've done a little different. I didn't go into detail as much because I just thought it was just so much greatness to this film visually. I just wish I could show you scenes and stuff like that. I just don't have the ability to edit in things. But I if you haven't seen the film, and you like things that are, visually stunning and acting that's interesting, and and if you like Charles Lawton, you never knew he directed, do watch this. And if you've seen it before, watch it again. And it's worth watching over and over. You'll see so many different things in it. It's an excellent film. So I'll end it there, and I'll see you next time, BookTube.